Hey guys, what's up and happy new year. Today we are doing my 2024 physical TBR. I have to warn you, I recently just got back into reading over the fall of 2023. So I kind of went just a little crazy and just bought a lot of books. So my physical TBR is quite large. Plus for Christmas, I got a Kindle. So physical TBR aside, soon it will grow on my Kindle. But anyway, if you guys are new here, hello. I recently started doing book videos, books that I read monthly, and I'd like to make a lot more bookish content in the new year. So I'm just gonna do this in order of what visually is top to bottom of my shelves. But yeah, let's just get into this. So any series I have, I'm just gonna show you the whole series that I own at once. So to begin, I have the rest of the grown-up glass books. So currently, as I am making this video on New Year's Day, I am reading Crown of Midnight, meaning I have Heir of Fire, Queen of Shadows, the tandem read of Empire of Storm and Tower of Dawn, and then Kingdom of Ash. I'm so excited for these books. I've been loving them so far. If you guys didn't see my November and December books I read, at the end of December, I started Assassin's Blade. And since the time I made that video to now, I'm already on Crown of Midnight. So I have been going through the series. I love it. So I'm super excited to get this whole series done. I'm a little intimidated by the tandem read, but still super excited for it. Also, just the last book, but it looks visually the size of Silver Flames. Oh God, it's not. It's a lot longer. So yeah, that is the first series on my to-do list. And then probably chronologically also the next series on my to-do list is Crescent City. So these are a little less to deal with so I can show you a little better. Book one, I have the Barnes & Noble's edition so you can't really see what it is, but this is House of Earth and Blood, Crescent City, book one. And then Crescent City, book two, House of Sky and Breath. The third one is coming out this month. So obviously I'm not quite prepared and I'm not trying to rush through the books. I'm trying to really enjoy them, but I'm just gonna be a little behind. I love these covers of Crescent City, and I believe when Crescent City comes out, it's only in hardcover, and I'm a hardcover girly. I know that's hard to believe with the books I've just shown you, but I really am. But now that I have these, I need the newest book coming out in this matching cover. So I'm worried I'm not gonna get a physical copy for a while, but that's what the Kindle's for, I guess, right? So yeah, I think this will be the next series I read after Throne of Glass, just to finish the Sarah J. Maas universe. All right, so that's it for my top shelf. We are done with the Sarah J. Maas shelf. So my shelves are in alphabetical order by last name, except for the Sarah J. Maas shelf, of course, that's on top. So to begin, From Blood and Ash. This book, I have heard a lot of mixed feelings on. This is gorgeous, first off. Once again, I know they have a hard copy, but this is just so pretty. This kind of gives the whole enemies to lovers, strong female role. Like I said, I've heard a lot of mixed reviews, so I'm just excited to see my opinions on this book because the people who love it, and the people who hate it are very passionate about their hate for it. So I'm excited. Next to From Blood and Ash on my shelf is Lightlark and Nightbane. So I got these together. I've been on the hunt for Lightlark and I just could not find it. Then Barnes & Noble's had their hardcover sale and I saw Nightbane. And I was like, okay, this is the last exclusive edition. What if this disappears? Like, I should just get the second one, even if I don't know if I'm gonna like the first one. So I asked a wonderful Barnes & Noble's employee and they were like, yeah, it's right in front of your face. This is another romantasy, high stakes, I believe enemies to lover as well. So if you haven't seen this on TikTok, the author Alex goes and talks about their book a lot. And every 100 years, the island of Lightlark appears. 6 rulers have to fight against each other to get their curses broken and to win a power. I'm not familiar with what Nightbane is about. I'm a type of girl who likes to go into books not knowing what they're about at all. But I will show you the Barnes & Noble's exclusive edition. I think it's so cool. But yeah, I am very, very excited for this series and excited to see what all the hype is about. You can kind of just see them disappearing up here as I go through them. But the next book on this shelf in my physical TBR is Cool Prince. This is like the special edition, so it doesn't really look like how it normally looks. There you go. There's my proof. Oh my God, the inside. You're joking. This is another enemies to lovers. If you haven't got the vibe, I'm an enemies to lovers, romantasy, love triangle, obsessed person. I'm not actually familiar once again with what this book is about. I believe it's about a fae man and a human woman, but that could be a lie. And it's really popular in the romantasy community, and God forbid it could be any more beautiful than it is. But yeah, next we have the Inheritance Games. This is another book. I know, I'm so vain about books. I'm so sorry. I got it because of how pretty it is. I've also heard about this on TikTok. Anyway, to my my understanding, this book is about a woman who comes from a really rich family and she learns that she's not going to inherit any of her rich family's money. I think there's a bunch of people who are trying to kill her to get her money, as well as vice versa. I wish I could tell you though. I'm not going to be a really good explainer. I'm sorry. I'm just going to tell you the blurbs from what I know because I like to keep it a surprise. But I am really excited about this book. It kind of gives slight Hunger Game vibes, if that's even the correct description, of all these people fighting to the death for basically financial freedom, if not financial overflow of freedom. The next book is Masters of Death. So this is by the same author of the person who wrote Atlas 6, which is really popular. So based on the little blurby in here, first off, look at, I love that. So this book is about a vampire who's a real estate agent and a medium who end up working together to get rid of all these ghosts in the mansion that the vampire is trying to sell. And I think a little bit of a love story in there. I don't know. This just really drew me in. Plus it kind of has a texture, but this pistachio is so pretty. The back just says, there's a game that the immortals play. There's only one rule, don't lose. Like, that sounds good. So I'm very excited for this. We should play a super fun game of how many times I say I'm very excited for this, as if I'm not excited for all of these. Next book on my TBR was a gift from my brother this year for Christmas. This is Fahrenheit 451. Is it 451? Is it 451? I don't even know. And I feel kind of stupid because this seems to be a very, very known book and maybe even a movie, and I just have never heard of it. So to my very little knowledge of this novel, this is about a man who is a fireman, but not a fireman what you think, a fireman of burning books. Like, we are in a world where you only watch television, you don't read books. I don't know why, and I'm kind of very curious to see why. It's not that big of a novel as well, almost 300 pages. So I'm very excited to see if this is the dystopian future vibe I'm getting from it or if it's something else. But yeah, this was a gift, so I'm excited to check it out because I love reading books that other people enjoy or recommend because it just kind of gives me insight into people. Another Christmas gift I got this year is The Serpent and the Wings of Night. Once again, another very popular TikTok book. It's kind of up there with Cool Prince. Those are kind of on the same level to me. This book is human meat vampire rather than the classic human meat fae. This is human and vampire. And I have a little, they're supposed to be bookmarks, but I just put them in like the next books that I want to read. I just scattered them throughout my bookshelf. I think they're so cute. They're just little leaves. But yeah, this book is very highly recommended to people who enjoyed Akotar as well as The Cruel Prince. Obviously I haven't read The Cruel Prince, but I presume I'll like it. This is it without the dust jacket. Are you joking? You're joking. The back says, never trust, never yield, always guard your heart. Obviously another enemies to lover. So, shocker, super excited to read this. The last book on my second shelf, don't judge me guys, we gotta talk about this, is Haunting Adeline. If you are unfamiliar, this is 600 pages of borderline illegal activities. So this book is actually the first dark romance I've ever purchased and or going to read. And I wanted to read this and do a I read dark romances only. And this one is a very popular one. To the point of dark romance where there are trigger warnings at the beginning. I read them, was a little iffy, so we'll see. I'm excited to see what all the hype's about. I am a little nervous to see why we love Zayd Meadows so much because, like I said, is anything he's doing legal? On to the next shelf. We are now on shelf 3, shelf 2, excluding the Sarah J. Maas shelf. And to begin, we are starting with City of Bones. This book was gifted to me, I believe about 2 years ago, but I wasn't really reading back then. But now that I'm back into reading, I'm excited to read this because this was a very popular fantasy book, I believe back kind of when Hunger Games was popular, if not even before then. And this has a bunch of like other series within this world, I believe. This is a big series. But yeah, this first one is City of Bones, the Mortal Instruments series. And I think this was made into a movie as well. These are all Shadowhunter warriors. I'm not quite sure what this is about. Like I said, kind of like to keep my books that way. All right, next book. So I made it a goal to read more classics. So this is kind of a big one to start with, but we're just going, you know, alphabetically by author, so just bear with me. This is Inferno. If you haven't seen any of my media with any of my classics, I am obsessed with this Penguin Classics cloth bound. I have a few more, so we'll get to showing you some of those. If you are unfamiliar, Inferno is basically Dante explaining the journey to hell. I believe it's all in Latin. So half of this book is in Latin, the other half is in English. So this is a very tough read, and I'm excited. And of course, it's all small print, about 500 pages. I'm excited because because anything that has to do with religion or the concept of other realms, heaven, hell, stuff like that intrigues me to no end, so I'm excited to read this. A little quick nonfiction to throw in there. I started this book when I started reading again in the fall, but I didn't get very far because, like I said, it's a nonfiction. It wasn't something that I would just sit down and binge. This is basically from Dr. Joe Dispenza and him just discussing how humans can reach their highest selves and we can do a lot more than we think we can. Like I said, I didn't get too far into it. My dad also loves this man. I don't know really much about him, but it's been interesting from what I've read, and I'd love to try some of the meditations and whatnot that he talks about because like it's very supernatural and very like weird, so I'm intrigued. On to our next book, which back to fantasy, is called Encyclopedia of Fairies. Look at how pretty she is. I haven't peeled off these stickers yet due to my nails. I will get on that. They bother me and I hate that Barnes & Nobles just do not come off easily. It's so annoying. Anyway, this edition is gorgeous and it has the deckled pages where they kind of look like they were just freshly made. Oh my god. So gorgeous. So this book is about Emily Wilds, and she writes the Encyclopedia of Fairies when she goes and visits this town, and I think this town is just full of fairies. This book is actually called Emily Wilds Encyclopedia of Fairies. Sorry, I promise I know how to read the title. It looks very like fun, whimsical academia versus like dark academia, so I'm excited to see what this is all about. Next book is another Christmas gift from my brother this year, and this is the first Outlander. It's a heavy book. So once again, I don't know much about this series. I believe it was turned into a TV show, and that's about it. Now that I'm reading, it kind of seems like historical fiction. So this just kind of gives strong female role, love triangle, and war. So I'm intrigued to see what this is about. I don't know why it's so heavy. God. On to the next books on my shelves. We have the Once Upon a Broken Heart series. Can you even see them? So the first book in the series is Once Upon a Broken Heart. So this woman wants to stop the love of her life's wedding, and she makes a deal with the Prince of Hearts. And I guess that was a dangerous game. It's giving Rumpelstiltskin from Shrek 4 vibes. And then once again, during the hardcover sale, they had these two. Like, this is so cool looking. Are you joking? And they had this one. They didn't have this in hardcover. I think there's only gonna be 3 books in the series, and here they are. I think this would be really fun to read all these during February, so maybe that'll be my goal. The girlies love this series. Going along with that kind of romance feel, the next book that we have is Twisted Love. Like I said, we have Haunting Adeline. This would be like a step before Haunting Adeline, I would say. This just kind of seems more light. Still smut, but not illegal smut. So this is a series. There's Twisted Love, Twisted Games, Twisted Hate, Twisted Lies, and I believe they're all different people, but like within the same world. And then this is Bodyguard and the girl he's watching over vibe. It has about 400 pages, so this is like a good read. This would be another good one to read, I feel like, in February. Maybe start with this, see if I enjoyed the series, and then move on to the Once Upon a Broken Heart series. Kind of switching up the pace for the last book on this level of the shelf is Then She Was Gone. This is a thriller, really popular and has been for a few years. This is about a daughter who disappears. The mom meets a man, starts dating this man, I believe, and he has a daughter who looks uncannily similar to the daughter she lost, and things just start becoming unraveled, or at least that's what I've heard. It is 350-ish pages. I am so excited to see what it's all about, as well as what's the plot twist, because it's a thriller. So that's the last book on this level. Onto the second to last level on my shelf, I have What Moves the Dead. So this book I wanted to read during the Halloween season, and I just did not. So this is a reimagining of Edgar Allan Poe's The Fall of the House of Usher. Once again, I believe they also made that into a series. I don't know much about it, but this cover intrigued me. It looks kind of gross, and I'm excited to read it. Maybe with all the books I have, I can put this off until the fall time. It's a little read, so. Next book, we have Babel. If you know books, if you know book talk, then you know Babel. This version I have, once again, has those deckled pages. And this book, I believe, is also historical fiction, if not like historical fantasy. I think it is historical fiction. But once again, I don't know much about this book. It was just very hyped. People rant and rave about this because it's about 500 pages. It's a good sized book, so I'm interested to see what this book is all about. Next, we have the first book in the Shatter Me series. This book is a dystopian romance, I believe. I think this did come out about the same time as the Hunger Games and stuff, so it's kind of on the same vibe as those books. I don't know if you can see this front cover, but this is all the books. So it's like a 8-book series plus like 4 novellas, but they're not that big. But basically our main character, her touch is fatal, and the people who are in charge of this dystopian world want to use her because her touch is fatal. And then I think she falls in love. I don't really know. It might just be about our main hero line, but I'm excited. And all the covers are so pretty too. Next book I have, this is not one I've ever seen anyone talk about, and so I'm even more excited, is Lilith. I think this is quite literally a retelling of different ancient myths regarding around Lilith. If you're unfamiliar, Lilith was supposedly Adam's first wife in the garden, and Adam wanted her to bow down and to listen to him, to basically be submissive, and she got banished from the Garden of Eden and Eve was made, so she became demonized. Like I said, I haven't heard anyone talk about this book, so that makes me even more excited. Another thriller is The Housemaid. Once again, if you're on Book Talk, you've probably heard of this book. I wanted to read this in October and I just didn't get around to it. But basically, this woman who's a housemaid starts working at this house and weird things start happening. A big weird thing that happens, according to the back, is she lives in the attic bedroom. She's a live-in housemaid and she realizes that her bedroom door only locks from the outside. But thriller, I'm excited to see the plot twist. Next book, going back to the classics, is Animal Farm. I had never read this book and I remember wanting to read it when I was really little because I was like, ooh, animals, Animal Farm, how cute. And I was told it was way too violent for me to read. So then as I got older, I was like, oh, is this about like veganism and, you know, anti-animal cruelty? And then as I got even older, I was like, I think this is about communism. So I'm very interested to actually like see what this is about. It's a very small read. So I was thinking like in between my current series read, just slip this in somewhere. Next book, of course, because we are doing authors alphabetically, is 1984. Once again, this gorgeous cloth bound. I know nothing about this book, but if it's by obviously the same author of Animal Farm, then it has to kind of be a metaphor to something. Onto the last book my brother got me for Christmas is Where the Crawdads Sing. I don't know anything about this, I'm gonna be so honest. I know it was recently made into a movie, and I know Taylor Swift sang in the movie, but that's about it. I think this is just a small town romance, but I don't really know. Oh, we have a small town romance love triangle. But yeah, here she is. You're probably familiar with her. I just live under a rock in my free time. Next two books, I'm just gonna include these together, but I'd like to save these for October as well, is Edgar Allan Poe, The Mask of the Red Death, and Edgar Allan Poe, The Raven and Other Poems. So we have that classic penguins, and then we have this gorgeous leatherbound with gold pages. I say little poems, and I'm probably gonna regret that when I actually open them, but it's Edgar Allan Poe, so like, it's gotta be October, right? Excited to read these. And to just know more about the man, because he intrigues me. Back into our romantasy, next book is Powerless. Once again, book talkers, you know this book. This is labeled on the front, Hunted Hunter, Destined for Each Other. Enemies to Lover. Obviously, it kind of has powers as well, like magic type powers, as well as kingdoms and competitions and trials, as well as, like I mentioned, the whole enemies to lover vibe. And this is the first book in the series. I believe it came out relatively recently, but anyone who likes any of the books that I've enjoyed are obsessed with this, so I have no doubt that I'll love it. Next book we have onto the Greek side of things is just labeled Herc. I got this book a few months back. This is a retelling. Labeled at the top, it says a queer revisionist retelling of the story of Hercules for fans of the Song of Achilles, A Thousand Ships. I didn't like Song of Achilles. If you haven't watched my November through December books I read, and you can go check that out for my opinion on it. But this sounds good because it has about 300 pages of a nice sized font. And I've always loved Hercules, and I've always loved how people display him versus how he actually was. And if it's so good, or if it's like the Song of Achilles. Next book, another Christmas gift I got, is Divine Rivals. It has my marking, which means it's on my very soon to-do list. So Divine Rivals, I believe, I keep saying I believe because I know literally nothing, is a historical fantasy. So the gods are waking up again, and this woman is writing letters to who she thinks is her brother about how she wants to get this job at this Oath Gazette, and they are just transporting to her rival at the paper. So they forge a connection to one another and they fall in love. Enemies to lovers fantasy. It's also only about 320 pages and a good size font. And the second one just recently came out, so exciting. Next book we have is Atlanta. I got this at the same time I got Herc, if you couldn't tell my interest at the time. But this is about Princess Atlanta, who is a daughter who was born in a time where of course only sons were really wanted. And she was raised by a bear once her parents left her on the side of a mountain because they they didn't care about her, and she was watched by the goddess Artemis. She kind of just gives sick Artemis vibes, and I am excited because I love Artemis. Who doesn't like Artemis? All right, on to the last books on this section of the shelf. Then we are on to the last section. It is a series. This is so heavy, you guys. Priory of the Orange Tree. This book is so ginormous and like relatively medium to small size font. It is upwards of 800 pages though. I know, once again, very little about this book. I know that people who like The Hobbit and Lord of the Rings like this book, as well as more advanced readers of people who enjoyed Fourth Wing, dragons, fantasy vibes. But clearly, this is a ginormous book. And I think the intimidation of it made me more intrigued. What happened was I only saw this in softcover, and one time I saw this in hardcover, and I didn't pick it up. And I was like, shoot, I missed my chance. One day, I saw the prequel, which is called A Day of the Fallen Knight, and it was in hardcover. And coincidentally, they had the Priory of the Orange Tree in hardcover too, and I said, okay, I'm just gonna buy it now before they all disappear. This book is the same size as the first one, so this is book 0. Like I said, I don't know very much about this series. I don't hear a lot of it on TikTok, but it's ginormous. This will probably be whenever I finish all the series and all the standalones I have to read, we will dive into these bad boys. Onto the last books on the bottom of my shelf. We are starting off with another classic, Dracula. So I was looking for this cloth-bound version of this all September and halfway through October before I gave up, and that's when I finally found it. It's about 450 pages, and I read Frankenstein, which was about the same length, so I'm a little curious to see if this is better than Frankenstein. But this book is sort of like Frankenstein, where it's written in letters, so they have dates on them. I saw people read along with this book as the days come, so if the book starts off with a letter from May 17th, that's when they read this, and they read all of May 17th's letter, and then at the next letter is May 20th, they don't read again until May 20th, and I think that would be fun. But I believe this does start off in the summer, so that would be, I don't know, kind of weird to me because I'd like to read this in the fall during October, so this might be another one I save until October. Another classic, we have The Adventures of Huckleberry Finn. I'm surprised I never had to read this in school, to be honest. This is about 300 pages. I think the cover's gorgeous. I love the green and the kind of swampy marshland, and I love the green little bookmark. But yeah, I am shocked I never had to read this in school. I think I had to read like different excerpts and whatnot from it in middle school, but I'm excited to read the full thing. 3 more books remaining, everyone. Hold on with me. Next book we have is For the Wolf. This is a book that I got at the same time as I got that Lilith book, where I was like, I've never seen people talk about this book. But this is a retelling of Little Red Riding Hood, and the back is labeled The First Daughters for the Throne and the Second Daughters for the Wolf. It has deckled pages, y'all know me. So Red is the only second daughter born in centuries, which means she has to be sacrificed to the wolf. And Red has all these powers, and she's like, honestly, it's great that I'm being sacrificed. I don't really want to be here anymore. And then she finds out that the wolf is actually a man, not a monster, and her magic isn't a curse. It says it's called the Wilderwood Book 1, so I didn't even know this was a series. I've always enjoyed Little Red Riding Hood, and I've always been a girl who's into werewolves, so this kind of gave werewolfy vibes, even though it's not. Second to last book is another classic, The Picture of Dorian Gray. This is about 200 pages, so it's not too big at all, which is probably a best place for me to start in terms of all these classics I have. This one is also a favorite of people who don't necessarily enjoy classics. Like, I've seen people who have a whole shelf of every edition of Dorian Gray. Like, people love this book. Onto the last book on my Physical TBR. So proud of you guys for making it this far. It's a nonfiction. This is The Fragile Earth. It is writing from the New Yorker on climate change. I got this a few years back. It was my first time going to an Amazon bookstore. Wow, don't go there if you don't got money to spend, guys. So this is about climate change. And as somebody who has a conservation degree, of course I would get something like this. I feel like only having 2 nonfictions in my TBR isn't too shabby. Good for me. A bunch of romantasy, a bunch of classics, and 2 nonfictions. I will take it. Anyway, you guys, thank you so much for watching this. If you made it this far, please tell me in the comments below your most anticipated book of this year. It can be one that's on your Physical TBR, one that's gonna come out, whatever you want it to be. Let me know in the comments below. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up, subscribe down below, and I will see you guys all later. Bye, everyone.